Hi, welcome to Yo Math Study. I'm Johan. Welcome to the channel. I have to make sure that you guys hit the subscribe button, make sure that you follow up with everything that's going on here. Right, thank you for joining me again. So if you've seen the last few videos, one of the things that I've mainly been talking about is why people think they're bad at math. One of the things I said is, first, let's take a look at study habits and all the reasons why maybe you have to adjust yourself to understand the material better and being better. The next level, as I said, are standardized tests. We have a nation that is very kind of heavy on these standardized tests, and these barriers to entry and those kind of things also add pressure to people and make them think that they're worse at math than they are, especially when those tests are designed to only answer certain kinds of questions, certain kinds of ways. But the next level, quite frankly, and I think is actually one of the highest levels as we talk about people being bad at math, is teachers themselves. A lot of teachers actually aren't that good at math, I've seen. The problem with math starts way before high school. Usually I tell people you're really gonna see where people's deficiencies are once they hit about 6th, 7th, 8th grade. And if you don't turn them around quick enough in that time, by the time they get to high school, it may be a little bit too late to work out those habits, even though I've definitely got people to turn around. But you usually want to get people at least around middle school. But most of the troubles actually happen sometime around elementary school. A lot of times when I talk to people about their math anxiety, I ask them, did you ever play like math games as a kid? And they're like, oh yeah, sure. And was it ever about who could multiply the fastest, who could add the fastest, who could do that? Oh yeah. And I say, okay, well, you got to let that go. Speed is not your friend. And oftentimes when we're in a teaching environment, especially with younger kids, we've got to keep them active. We play games, we do things, and a lot of those games are usually in some kind of competitive nature, right? So when you have to ask what's 9 times 9, ooh, I know, 55. No. And usually you start getting kids that are just blurting out answers and they don't even really know whether or not they did it right. They're just trying to get to the answer so that they can win. And it's not necessarily the teacher's fault, but I do think that more teachers should be aware of how they are, in a very nuanced way, programming their kids to think that it's about speed more than it is about accuracy. That's not to say that, I'm not going to necessarily say that there should be no such thing as competitive games or timed games or speed, but I've definitely had a lot of kids tell me that their teacher said, if you don't know your times tables like the back of your hand, then you're not very good at it. That's not true. I really want to dispel that. If you need to count on your fingers, do it. If you need to write it down, go ahead and do that. But, there are a lot of people who often find themselves left out and believe that they're worse at math than they are because they've been comparing themselves to their classmates and their quickness with answering. Beyond that, you also have teachers themselves that don't really like math. They may not even necessarily like the form of math in the way that they have to teach it, but they're under other constraints with their job. And so along with that, they don't really like math. Maybe they weren't all that great with math. And so you feel the energy come off when you guys are doing it. You also have teachers who may be great at math, but they're not really that good at necessarily communicating it. Sometimes people that are very good at things aren't necessarily great at explaining things. And I tell people that the way that I do it is I try to explain everything in layman's terms, because again, math really isn't much more than these 4 processes that you see behind me. That's really generally what math is. So when you bring it back down to the basics, math in a large scale is not hard per se to understand. Most people understand the concepts fine, but the problem themselves when put in front of you becomes a whole different thing. And so a lot of teachers don't really emphasize that point. They emphasize accuracy. A lot of math teachers often cut a lot of people down. I've seen that a lot. I've heard a lot of horror stories of teachers calling their students all kinds of names, calling them dumb, saying that math isn't for them, undercutting them in elementary school. And I want to tell you now, and this is for adults and kids, and especially for adults who have thought about their inner child when it comes to this. Again, if you reach out to me, I will challenge you on the idea that you're not good at math. Many teachers often use their superiority in math to then be superior over their students, or as though they're superior over other people because they know math well. Being good at math doesn't make you better than anyone else. It means that you have a skill, and having a skill at anything makes you special on its own. It does not mean that you're better at anyone because you're good at this particular thing. Everyone's a genius in their own right, especially when they work at it. So I would say that a lot of you guys are probably most likely carrying around an understanding of math that isn't true, or an understanding of your ability that is not true, simply because you had teachers that were not being more merciful. I know a lot of teachers that honestly, they have a very take it or leave it kind of attitude, and they don't really offer help, or they only offer it as much as they're really willing to, because quite frankly, a lot of math teachers also don't really want to do as much work as they tell you. And I issue this challenge to a lot of math teachers out there. Please, dig deeper into your abilities, dig deeper into your ability to change and transform for the sake of your students. It's not fair for teachers to tell their students to practice or to get better at something and that you yourself are unwilling to change. The teacher should also adapt to demonstrate that in front of their students. So quite frankly, that's one of the biggest reasons why a lot of people say that they're bad at math, because their teacher was not very good. And as I told you in one of my earlier stories, I never in my life would have thought that I would be a math teacher, but thanks to a professor of mine, she allowed me to help others, and that's why I want to help more.